By 2030, some parts of Australia could become almost unlivable. Scorching temperatures, unstoppable bushfires, and rising sea levels are no longer predictions. They're already happening. In just the past 5 years, Australia has faced its worst wildfire season. Cities have choked under record-breaking heat waves, and coastal homes are literally falling into the sea. These aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a terrifying trend that's only speeding up. But climate change isn't the only reason people are starting to pack their bags. Skyrocketing living costs, a broken housing market, and overwhelmed healthcare systems are forcing many Australians to ask, is it time to leave? And here's the shocking part. Thousands already are. Quietly, steadily, skilled professionals and young families are choosing to start over in safer, more affordable countries. So before you make any long-term plans, you need to hear this. These 10 reasons might convince you that staying in Australia beyond 2030 could be the biggest mistake of your life. Stick around, because number 1 might just change everything you thought you knew. Number 10, better opportunities abroad. While Australia grapples with rising costs, climate threats, and policy stagnation, many countries are racing ahead, offering not just a better standard of living, but a brighter future. Across Europe, Asia, and the Americas, nations are opening their doors to skilled migrants, professionals, and families seeking stability, affordability, and opportunity. Take Canada, for example. With its universal healthcare, affordable education, and strong social safety nets, it's one of the top destinations for Australians looking to start fresh. Germany offers world-class infrastructure, a booming tech economy, and free or low-cost university education. Portugal, with its sunny climate and low cost of living, has become a hotspot for digital nomads and retirees alike. These countries aren't just welcoming, they're actively recruiting people like you. Through fast-track visas, residency incentives, and investment programs, they're building smarter, more inclusive societies. In many of these places, your dollar stretches further, your skills are more in demand, and your future looks a lot more secure. And let's not forget about work-life balance. In nations like Sweden or the Netherlands, policies around paid parental leave, flexible work, and public transport aren't perks. They're part of the system. Compare that with Australia's growing burnout culture and housing squeeze, and the contrast becomes hard to ignore. So maybe it's not just about escaping Australia's problems, but about stepping into something better, a place where you can build, thrive, and breathe easier. Because sometimes the right move isn't staying and hoping, it's leaving and choosing wisely. Number 9, increasing urban overcrowding. Australia's big cities are bursting at the seams, and it's affecting everything from your commute to your quality of life. With the majority of the population concentrated in urban centres like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, infrastructure is struggling to keep up with demand. Roads are clogged, public transport is overpacked, and housing developments are swallowing green space at a rapid pace. Since 2000, Sydney's population has grown by over 1.5 million people, with similar surges in Melbourne. But this growth hasn't been matched with smart, sustainable planning. Instead, we're seeing urban sprawl, skyrocketing congestion, and a deepening divide between the inner-city elite and the outer suburb strugglers. Overcrowded schools and hospitals are just part of the problem. Public services are stretched thin, green spaces are shrinking, and noise and air pollution are on the rise. Commute times have ballooned, with some residents spending 2 hours or more a day just getting to and from work. That's time lost with family, time stolen from your well-being. Even culturally, this kind of urban pressure creates anonymity and disconnection. The charm of close-knit communities is being replaced by high-rise apartments and transient neighbours. Many residents feel like they're just another number in an overbuilt machine. Meanwhile, countries with smarter urban planning like Denmark, the Netherlands, or even parts of Canada offer cities that are clean, green, and built for people, not just profit. So the question is, do you want to raise your family in a city that's growing smarter, or one that's just growing bigger and more chaotic by the year? Number 8, water scarcity threats. Water, the most basic human need, is becoming a growing concern in Australia. As one of the driest inhabited continents on Earth, Australia has always faced challenges with water management, but climate change and population growth are now turning those challenges into serious long-term threats. According to a 2024 government report, major reservoirs across the country are hitting critically low levels, particularly in regions like the Murray-Darling Basin, which supports much of the nation's agriculture. Farmers are already being forced to cut back on production, raising the price of food. In cities, governments are introducing water restrictions, limiting everything from gardening to car washing. The issue goes deeper than just rainfall. Over-extraction, mismanagement, and outdated infrastructure mean that even when water is available, it's not always getting to where it's needed most. In some rural communities, residents rely on trucked-in water just to meet daily needs. And if current trends continue, even urban centres like Perth and Adelaide could face severe water shortages within the next decade. Rising temperatures are only making things worse. More frequent droughts are reducing catchment inflows, while evaporation rates are increasing, shrinking the available supply even further. Desalination plants offer temporary relief, but they're expensive and energy-intensive. A stopgap, not a solution. So imagine this, a future where turning on the tap is a luxury, where food prices soar and daily life is shaped by water scarcity. That's the direction Australia is heading unless drastic action is taken. And for many, the safer choice might be to seek out countries with more reliable, sustainable water systems. Number 7. Limited job opportunities in key sectors. Australia might be known for its beaches and lifestyle, but when it comes to future-proof careers, the landscape is far less sunny. While some traditional sectors like mining and construction still thrive, many high-potential industries like technology, renewable energy, advanced manufacturing, and creative arts are lagging behind compared to global standards. Let's take tech, for example. Despite being a developed nation, Australia is losing talent to the US, Canada, and Europe, where innovation hubs offer better pay, more investment, and faster career growth. Software engineers, researchers, data scientists, and digital creatives are flocking overseas for one simple reason: more opportunities and bigger visions. Even in education and healthcare, sectors that once offered stability, the cracks are showing. Overworked, underpaid, and undervalued professionals are increasingly burnt out, with little incentive to stay when other countries are actively recruiting them with better packages and clearer career paths. This is fueling what many experts now call a brain drain. Australia trains some of the brightest minds but fails to keep them. Young graduates, especially those with global ambitions, often feel like they have to leave to succeed. Meanwhile, other nations are making it easier than ever for skilled migrants to relocate, offering visa incentives, relocation grants, and fast-tracked residency. Australia, on the other hand, is becoming harder to break into and harder to rise within. So, if you're ambitious, future-focused, and looking for more than just a paycheck, ask yourself, is Australia still the place to build your dream career, or is the real opportunity waiting beyond its borders? Number 6. Political instability policy inertia. Australia's political system is showing signs of deep fatigue, just when the country needs bold, forward-thinking leadership the most. In the past 2 decades, Australia has seen 6 different prime ministers, a revolving door of leadership that reflects more political survival than real progress. And the result? Stagnant policies and delayed action on the biggest challenges facing the nation. Take climate change, for example. Despite being one of the countries most vulnerable to global warming, Australia has consistently ranked among the worst performers on international climate action indexes. Promises are made during election campaigns, but implementation often falls flat, leaving citizens with rhetoric instead of results. Then there's housing, healthcare, and infrastructure. These issues have been on the national agenda for years, yet real solutions remain out of reach. Many Australians feel disillusioned, watching leaders debate while costs rise, services falter, and communities struggle. Young people, in particular, are growing more politically disengaged, not because they don't care, but because they have lost faith that change is even possible under the current system. In contrast, countries like Finland or New Zealand have demonstrated how stable leadership and visionary policies can reshape an entire nation in just a decade. Meanwhile, Australia risks being left behind, stuck in a cycle of short-term politics and long-term decline. So before you commit to building your future here, ask yourself, do you want to live in a country stuck in neutral or one that's accelerating forward? Because by 2030, political inertia may cost Australians more than they realise. Number 5. Isolation from the world. Australia is one of the most physically isolated nations on Earth, and that isolation comes with a steep price. While its natural beauty is undeniable, its geographic location makes travel, trade, and even cultural exchange far more difficult and expensive than in most other countries. Let's face it, a quick trip to Europe or North America is out of reach for many Australians, not just because of the cost, but because of the sheer distance. Flights are long, pricey, and often out of budget for the average family. And with rising global instability, those journeys could become even harder in the coming years. This isolation doesn't just affect travel, it impacts economic growth, access to innovation, and global collaboration. Countries in Europe or Asia, where borders are close and well-connected, enjoy richer cultural diversity, faster technology adoption, and greater career mobility. Australians, on the other hand, often find themselves feeling disconnected from the fast-moving changes shaping the rest of the world. Socially, this distance can take a toll. Families with roots overseas struggle with limited visitations, high costs, and long separations. Many expats describe feeling stuck on an island, both literally and figuratively. So ask yourself, do you want to be part of a more connected, accessible world, or stay in a country where the rest of the globe feels farther away every year? Because by 2030, Australia's isolation could feel more like a barrier than a blessing. We pour hours into crafting these videos to bring you powerful, eye-opening insights. If this made you think, even a little, drop us a comment below with your thoughts or personal experiences. And hey, subscribing is just one click, but it means the world to us. Number 4. Healthcare system under pressure. Australia's once envied public healthcare system is starting to crack, and fast. Hospitals are overwhelmed, emergency rooms are stretched thin, and wait times for specialist appointments are now measured in months, not days. The truth is, the system that once provided world-class care is now struggling to keep up with demand. In rural and regional areas, access to healthcare is even more dire. Communities are facing chronic shortages of doctors and nurses, and in some towns, people have to drive for hours just to see a GP. Even in major cities, elective surgeries like joint replacements or cataract removals are being delayed indefinitely due to staffing and resource shortages. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed just how fragile the system really is, but even years later, it hasn't fully recovered. Burnout among healthcare workers is at an all-time high, and many are leaving the profession altogether. This exodus is putting even more strain on those who remain, creating a vicious cycle that's only getting worse. Meanwhile, private health insurance premiums are rising, and even those with coverage often face unexpected out-of-pocket costs. Australians are now being forced to ask themselves, can I actually afford to get sick? In contrast, countries like France, Japan, or the Netherlands offer more efficient, better staffed, and often more affordable healthcare systems, especially for families and the elderly. So before you find yourself in a medical emergency, ask, is Australia still the safe, healthy country we once knew? Because if current trends continue, access to quality healthcare may no longer be guaranteed by 2030. Number 3. Rising cost of living. If you felt like your paycheck isn't stretching as far as it used to, you're absolutely right. Australia is now ranked among the top 10 most expensive countries to live in, and the pressure on everyday Australians is becoming unbearable. From groceries to electricity, from fuel to healthcare, the cost of basic necessities is rising faster than wages. Let's break it down. In 2024, the cost of fresh produce jumped by over 15%, while fuel prices soared above $2.30 per litre in many cities. Electricity bills? Up by nearly 20% in some states. Even staples like bread and milk have become luxuries for low-income families. And it's not just the numbers, it's the stress, the sacrifices, the silent decisions people are forced to make every day. More and more families are turning to buy now, pay later schemes just to cover groceries. Single parents are skipping meals so their kids can eat. Elderly Australians are choosing between heating and medication. These aren't extreme cases, they're becoming frighteningly common. Meanwhile, inflation continues to rise and wage growth remains stagnant. Every dollar you earn is losing value, and there's no clear relief in sight. In contrast, countries with lower living costs and stronger support systems, like Portugal or Malaysia, are attracting expats who want a better quality of life without the financial strain. So if you feel like you're constantly working just to survive, you're not alone, and you're not wrong. The rising cost of living in Australia is not just a temporary bump, it's part of a deeper, more dangerous economic shift that could make staying here unsustainable by 2030. Number 2. Housing affordability crisis. Owning a home in Australia has gone from being a rite of passage to an almost impossible dream. In cities like Sydney and Melbourne, median house prices have surged past $1 million, far outpacing wage growth. A recent report by CoreLogic revealed that it now takes the average Australian over 12 years just to save for a house deposit, and that's assuming housing prices don't rise even further. But it's not just home buyers who are feeling the heat. Renters are being squeezed from every angle. Vacancy rates have hit historic lows, while rental prices are skyrocketing month after month. Families are being forced into smaller, less livable spaces, or even out of major cities entirely, just to stay afloat. This crisis is particularly brutal for young Australians, many of whom are living with their parents well into their 30s. Even professionals with stable jobs are struggling to secure housing, leading to a growing sense of economic despair and social instability. Compare this with countries like Germany or Canada, where affordable housing policies and rent controls help people actually build a future. In Australia, the housing market has become a speculative playground for investors, while everyday Australians are priced out of their own communities. So ask yourself, what kind of future can you really build in a place where shelter, a basic human need, is now a luxury? The housing affordability crisis isn't just about money, it's about quality of life, stability, and the ability to plan for tomorrow. And right now, Australia is falling short. Number 1. Escalating climate crises. Australia is no longer just vulnerable to climate change, it's one of the most at-risk developed countries on the planet. In fact, according to a 2023 report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, Australia is already experiencing climate impacts more intensely and more frequently than nearly any other country in the Western world. Let's talk numbers. The Black Summer fires of 2019 to 2020 burned over 17 million hectares, killed or displaced 3 billion animals, and blanketed entire cities in toxic smoke. Just 2 years later, record floods devastated parts of Queensland and New South Wales, displacing thousands. These disasters are no longer once-in-a-century events, they're becoming a regular part of life. Temperatures are rising so fast that by 2030, some inland regions may face over 50 days of extreme heat per year. Sea levels are creeping upward, eating away at coastlines and putting billions of dollars in property at risk. Areas like the Northern Territory and Western Sydney could become climate war zones, where daily life is defined by power outages, water shortages, and fire evacuations. And here's the scary part. Many of these changes are irreversible. Even with aggressive climate policies, the damage already done means Australia is likely headed for more heat, less water, and a much higher cost of living. The question isn't if the climate will push people out, it's when. So, if you've ever felt that summer is getting hotter and the storms more violent, you're not imagining things. Australia's climate reality is shifting fast, and you need to be ready